Sarah Chen stood at the edge of her property on Dawn Colony, watching the twin suns set over fields of modified wheat that rippled like a golden ocean in the evening breeze. Rex, her enhanced German shepherd, sat alertly by her side, his cybernetic eye glowing softly in the fading light. 10 years after retiring from Earth's Interstellar Defense Force, she still maintained their daily patrol routine. Old habits died hard when you'd spent 15 years as a military K-9 handler. "One last sweep before dinner, boy?" she asked. Rex's natural eye met hers as his tail wagged once, their private signal of agreement. They'd been partners long enough that words were rarely necessary. The wheat fields of Dawn Colony stretched for kilometers, a testament to humanity's determination to survive after Earth became uninhabitable. Sarah's farm sat at the outer perimeter, where civilization gave way to the planet's native purple forests. Most colonists thought she was crazy for living so far out, but after years of combat, she preferred the solitude. Rex suddenly froze, his enhanced muscles tensing. Sarah immediately dropped into a crouch, years of training taking over. The shepherd's cybernetic eye whirred as it switched through spectral modes, scanning the area ahead. His low growl carried a specific pitch. There was an intruder, but not human. "Show me," Sarah whispered. Rex led her through the wheat, moving with practiced silence. The dying sunlight painted long shadows across the field, and Sarah's hand instinctively checked the pulse rifle slung across her back. She might be retired, but Dawn Colony sat on the edge of disputed space. They found the intruder in a small clearing where the wheat had been flattened in a rough circle. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Lying in the center was a Vorkai, one of the most feared warrior species in known space. But this one wasn't wearing their characteristic battle armor. Instead, it wore simple civilian clothes, now stained with phosphorescent blue blood seeping from multiple wounds. The Vorkai's gray-scaled skin had the matte finish of dehydration, and its chest plates barely moved with shallow breaths. Sarah had fought against their kind during the Mars campaign, seen firsthand how dangerous they could be. Even unarmed, a healthy Vorkai could tear a human apart, but this one was clearly dying. Rex moved forward slowly, his posture uncertain. In all their years of service, they'd never encountered a Vorkai outside of combat. The shepherd sniffed the air, then did something that made Sarah's jaw drop. He whined sympathetically. The Vorkai's eyes fluttered open at the sound. Unlike the burning red she remembered from the battlefield, these eyes were a deep amber. The alien tried to speak, but only managed a weak clicking sound from its throat sacs. "Rex, guard," Sarah ordered, though her dog's reaction had already started shifting her threat assessment. She approached cautiously, keeping her hands visible. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm a farmer now, not a soldier." The Vorkai's mandibles twitched in what Sarah recognized as their species' equivalent of a pained smile. "The stars have a strange sense of humor," it said in surprisingly good English, "to send me to a human who might understand." "Understand what?" Sarah asked, kneeling beside the alien while maintaining a safe distance. Rex moved to her side, still alert but no longer tense. "That sometimes one must desert to preserve honor." The Vorkai's words were punctuated by wet clicking sounds that Sarah recognized as their version of coughing. "They are coming. Dawn Colony. Not prepared." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "Who's coming?" "My people, but not my people. The ones who corrupted the old ways." The Vorkai reached for something in its clothes, movements weak but deliberate. Sarah tensed, but Rex remained calm. The alien withdrew a small data crystal. "Proof. Battle plans. 3 days." The Vorkai's arm dropped as consciousness fled, but Sarah caught the crystal before it could fall into the wheat. She looked at Rex, who met her gaze with both his natural and cybernetic eyes. The shepherd's tail wagged once, their signal of trust. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, knowing her next actions would change everything. She'd seen enough combat to know that information like this could save thousands of lives, but helping a Vorkai was technically treason under current laws. The penalty was exile, a death sentence on most colony worlds. Guard the perimeter, she ordered Rex as she pulled her emergency medical kit from her pack. The shepherd immediately began a patrol pattern around them, his enhanced senses scanning for threats. As Sarah prepared a universal coagulant injection, she spoke softly to her unconscious patient. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm going to help you. Not because I've forgotten Mars, but because Rex trusts you, and in 15 years, his instincts have never been wrong. Just, please don't make me regret this when you wake up. As the twin suns finally set, and Dawn Colony's defense platforms twinkled like artificial stars overhead, Sarah began treating the 4K's wounds. She worked quickly, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, time was running out for her home. Whatever came next would depend on whether her trust in Rex's judgment proved as reliable as it had in war. The wheat whispered around them in the evening breeze, keeping their secrets as night fell on the edge of human space. The basement of Sarah's farmhouse had been designed as a panic room, standard issue for frontier properties, but she never expected to use it to hide a Vorkai warrior. Rex lay at the foot of the medical cot, his cybernetic eye maintaining constant biosign monitoring of their unconscious guest, while Sarah studied the data crystal's contents on a secure tablet. Her hands trembled as she reviewed the battle plans. 3 Vorkai dreadnoughts, currently hidden in the dark matter clouds beyond Dawn's solar system. Over 20,000 troops, including their feared Shadow Strike units. The colony's defenses were designed to repel pirates and raiders, not a full-scale invasion force. A soft click whistle drew her attention. The Vorkai was awake, watching her with those unusual amber eyes. Rex's tail thumped once against the floor. Still trusting, still calm. You helped me, the alien said, its voice stronger after hours of treatment. Why? Sarah set down the tablet. Because Rex trusted you, and because if you wanted to kill me, you'd have tried already. She pulled up a chair. I'm Sarah Chen, former K-9 handler, IDF Special Operations. Now I grow wheat and try to forget about war. Your turn. The Vorkay's mandibles shifted in what Sarah was beginning to recognize as contemplation. Was Commander Kara's of the 4th Battle Circle. Now I am nothing. Exile. Traitor. Its throat sacs produced a sound like bitter laughter. The first Vorkay to betray the Dominion in 3 centuries. Why? Sarah asked, leaning forward. Why warn us? Karis's scaled hands clenched. Because the Dominion is no longer what it was. The new warlord, he speaks of honor but understands nothing of it. Our ways were always harsh, but there were lines we did not cross. Rules of combat. Respect for worthy foes. The alien's eyes met hers. Humans fought well on Mars. With courage. Honor. The new warlord would destroy your colony with biological weapons. No chance to fight. No warrior's death. Just extinction. Sarah felt sick. Biological weapons have been outlawed by every spacefaring species after the horror of Proxima. Even during the bloodiest battles of the Mars campaign, neither side had crossed that line. Rex suddenly lifted his head, cybernetic eye pulsing red. Seconds later, Sarah's perimeter alerts pinged. Someone was approaching the farm. Military patrol, she said, checking the sensors. Standard sweep pattern. They must have detected your ship's entry trail. She looked at Karis. If they find you here, we'll both face execution. Then surrender me, Karis said quietly. Save yourself. It would be a warrior's choice. Rex stood, positioning himself between the stairs and the cot, his decision made. Sarah felt a smile tug at her lips despite the situation. Yeah, that's not happening. Rex has decided you're under his protection, and he's even more stubborn than I am. She quickly gathered supplies. Water, emergency rations, medical kit. There's a maintenance tunnel that leads to the southern fields. The purple forest starts 2 kilometers past that. We can. Sarah Chen, Kara's interrupted, struggling to sit up. You cannot come with me. You have a life here. A home. A home that will be destroyed in 3 days if we don't get that intelligence to someone who can act on it. She helped the Vorkay stand, noting how they leaned on each other for support. Besides, pretty sure helping you has already made me a traitor. Might as well commit to it. Heavy footsteps sounded overhead. The patrol had arrived sooner than expected. Rex's augmented muscles coiled, ready for action. "Can you run?" Sarah asked. Karis tested their legs. "Not well. But I can fight if needed. Let's hope it doesn't come to that." Sarah activated her tablet's remote linked to the house systems. With a few commands, she triggered a cascade of false alarms across the northern section of her property. Through the ceiling, she heard boots scrambling as the patrol responded to the diversion. "Nice trick," Karis commented as they moved toward the tunnel entrance. "You learn a few things in special operations." Sarah helped them into the narrow passage. "Rex, take point. Scan for patrols." As they crawled through the maintenance tunnel, Sarah's mind raced. They needed a way to get the invasion plans to Colonial Command without getting shot as traitors. They needed proof that Karis was telling the truth about the biological weapons. Most of all, they needed time. And that was the one thing they didn't have. The tunnel emerged in a drainage ditch covered by dense purple vegetation. Dawn's smaller sun had set, but its larger companion still painted the sky in shades of burnt orange. Rex led them south, his enhanced senses guiding them through safe paths between patrol routes. "The fourth battle circle," Sarah said as they moved, keeping Karis talking to distract them from their pain. "They were at Mars, weren't they? The unit that nearly broke our lines at Olympus Mons." "You have a good memory," Karis replied. "Your counterattack was magnificent when the human commander released the war dogs." Their mandibles shifted in what might have been admiration. "We still tell stories of that day." Rex's ears perked up at the mention of war dogs. Sarah remembered that battle, hundreds of enhanced canines leading the charge up the slopes of Olympus Mons, their neural links allowing human handlers to coordinate the assault from protected positions. The Vorkay had been so shocked by the unusual tactic that it had turned the tide of the entire campaign. "The dogs were the key to victory," Karis continued. "They were unexpected. The Dominion believes itself superior to all species, but they had never faced warriors who fought alongside such companions. It changed many minds about humans, made some of us question." They fell silent as distant engines roared overhead. Search vehicles joining the hunt. Sarah knew it was only a matter of time before someone fought to check the maintenance tunnels. They needed a new plan, and they needed it fast. "Sarah Chin," Karis said suddenly, "I must tell you something. The invasion, it is not the only threat. The biological weapon, it was tested first, on a remote human outpost." Their voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. "I have proof of that as well. Evidence that could unite all colonies against the Dominion's new leadership." Sarah stopped, her blood running cold. Rex turned to look at them, his cybernetic eye glowing eerily in the growing darkness. "Where is this proof?" she asked. "In a secure facility. 2 days' journey from here." Karis's amber eyes seemed to glow. "It will be heavily guarded." Sarah looked at Rex, who met her gaze steadily. His tail wagged once, their signal of agreement, of trust, of commitment to whatever came next. "Well," she said, managing a grim smile, "I was starting to worry retirement had made me soft anyway. Tell us more about this facility." Above them, Dawn's defense platforms continued their peaceful orbits, unaware that the next few days would determine not just the fate of the colony, but possibly the course of human-Vorkay relations for generations to come. In the gathering darkness, 3 unlikely allies began to plan what any rational being would consider impossible. Sarah wouldn't have it any other way. The Vorkay research facility rose from the purple forests like a dark monolith, its black surfaces absorbing the pale light of dawn's moons. Sarah lay prone on a ridge overlooking the complex, using Rex's enhanced visual feed to study the defenses. After 2 days of hard travel, they'd finally reached their target, But the sight before them made her question whether Karis's plan was actually possible. 3 layers of energy shields, she whispered, watching the barely visible shimmer in the air. Automated defense turrets every 20 meters. And those are just the obvious security measures. Karis, their wounds now partially healed, clicked their mandibles softly. The less obvious ones are far worse. Quantum scanners, phased reality disruption fields, DNA-locked access points. They turned their amber eyes to Sarah, still certain you wish to proceed. Rex's tail wagged once, answering for both of them. Sarah smiled grimly. We didn't come all this way to admire the architecture. You said you had a way in. Indeed. Karis withdrew a small device from their weathered civilian clothes. Command authorization codes. They will still work for approximately 6 hours before the system registers my desertion and deletes them. Their throat sacs produced a sound like dark amusement. The Dominion's bureaucracy has always been slow to update its security protocols. Sarah studied the facility again through her tactical visor. Even with the codes, we'll need a distraction to get past the guard patrols. Something big enough to draw attention, but not so big it triggers a complete lockdown. Rex's cybernetic eye pulsed suddenly, focusing on something in the distance. Sarah followed his gaze and felt her heart skip. A massive cargo transport was approaching the facility, its anti-gravity engines humming softly in the night air. Regular supply delivery, Karis explained, every 3 days at this exact time. The Dominion values precision in all things. Except loyalty, apparently, Sarah said, then immediately regretted it when she saw Karis flinch. Sorry, that was unfair. No, Karis replied quietly. It was accurate. The Dominion's obsession with absolute loyalty is what allowed the new warlord to corrupt our highest ideals. Those who questioned him were branded traitors before they could expose the truth. Sarah watched the cargo ship begin its landing sequence. How many others think like you? In the 4th battle circle. More than the warlord suspects. Less than would be needed for open resistance. Karis's mandibles shifted thoughtfully. But if we succeed tonight, if we can prove what he has done, perhaps that will change. The cargo ship settled onto a landing pad, its massive hull blocking the view of several security towers. Sarah felt a plan forming. The guards' patrol patterns will adjust to accommodate the delivery, right? Standard procedure. Yes. For exactly 17 minutes, their attention will be focused on screening the cargo. That's our window then. Sarah checked her gear one last time. The pulse pistol felt woefully inadequate for what they were about to attempt, but anything larger would have slowed them down during their cross-country trek. Rex, initiate infiltration protocol Sigma. Audio damping at maximum. The shepherd's enhanced muscles tensed as his cybernetic systems engaged stealth modes. Sarah turned to Karis, ready to commit some more treason. An interesting question, Karis replied. Can one commit treason against those who have already betrayed everything they claim to honor? They activated their command codes. The first shield will drop in 3 minutes. We must time this perfectly. They moved through the forest like shadows, Rex taking point with his superior senses. As they approached the facility's perimeter, Sarah noticed something odd about the guard patterns. They're too rigid, she whispered, too predictable. The new warlord values machines over warriors, Karis explained with disgust. These are drone soldiers. Reliable, unquestioning, and utterly without honor. Drone soldiers. Sarah had never heard of such technology. That's concerning. More than you know. They are part of his larger plan. Replace thinking warriors with obedient machines. Strip away everything that makes us Vorkai until only blind loyalty remains. Karis's voice carried centuries of cultural pride turned to ash. The biological weapons are only the beginning. They reached the outer perimeter just as the first shield flickered and dropped. Sarah could see the cargo inspection team heading toward the transport, drawing guards away from their section. Everything was proceeding according to plan, which is exactly when everything went wrong. Rex froze, his cybernetic eye flashing a warning seconds before alarms began blaring across the facility. Red emergency lights bathed the complex in bloody illumination as a voice boomed in both English and the clicking speech of the Vorkai. 8 in 2 Quarantine protoxiols NJGD. Facility Lockdown INITA. Hete. Sarah turned to Karis, whose amber eyes had widened in genuine shock. "This is not normal procedure," they said quickly. "Something is wrong." As if in answer, the cargo ship's hull suddenly split open. But instead of supplies, its hold contained rows upon rows of stasis pods. One of them was malfunctioning, its containment field flickering as something inside thrashed violently. "No," Karis whispered in horror. "They are moving them. The test subjects. But it's too soon." The malfunctioning pod burst open with a hiss of escaping gas. A figure stumbled out, humanoid but wrong in ways that made Sarah's combat-hardened stomach turn. Its skin was a patchwork of human and Vorkai features, as if someone had tried to forcibly merge the species at a genetic level. What did they do? Sarah breathed, unable to look away from the twisted creature as more pods began to malfunction. What did they create? "The future, according to the warlord," Karis said, their voice thick with shame. "A way to end the war forever by forcing evolution itself to bow to his will. But the process, it drives them mad, makes them savage. That is why this facility exists, to perfect the procedure, no matter how many test subjects they must sacrifice." Rex growled low in his throat as more pods began to fail, their occupants howling with inhuman voices. The drone guards were moving to contain the situation, but they were being overwhelmed by the sheer number of escaped subjects. Rex's tail wagged once, still ready, still committed. Sarah checked her pulse pistol's charge and managed a grim smile. "Well, we came for evidence of atrocities. Looks like the evidence found us first." Together, they began moving toward the facility's entrance, using the pandemonium as cover. Above them, dawn's moons cast their pale light on a scene of horror and revelation, one that would either break their worlds apart or forge a new future from the pieces. Sarah had a feeling they were about to find out which. The facility's corridors echoed with inhuman screams and the staccato burst of weapons fire. Sarah, Rex, and Karis moved swiftly through the chaos, using the confusion to their advantage. Rex's cybernetic eye cut through the emergency lighting's crimson glare, guiding them past pockets of fighting between drone guards and escaped test subjects. "The command center is 3 levels down," Karis whispered as they crouched behind a fallen security barrier. "But the primary lift systems are locked down during quarantine protocols. There has to be another way," Sarah replied, watching Rex scan their surroundings. "A facility like this would have emergency routes. Maintenance access." "Yes, through the laboratories." Karis's mandibles clicked nervously. "But what we will see there." A violent crash interrupted them as a drone guard was thrown through a nearby door, its metallic body crumpling against the wall. The twisted figure that followed it moved with an unnatural fusion of human agility and Vorkai strength, its mismatched flesh rippling as it attacked. Rex's hackles rose, but Sarah held him back. The creature finished destroying the drone and turned toward them, its face a horrific attempt to merge human and Vorkai features. For a moment, its eyes, one human, one Vorkai, focused on their position. Then it howled and sprinted away, drawn by sounds of fighting elsewhere. "Those were prisoners of war," Karis said softly, "captured during the Mars campaign. The warlord claimed they died in custody. Instead, they became his test subjects." Sarah felt rage building in her chest. "How many?" "Hundreds, perhaps thousands." Karis wouldn't meet her eyes. "When the experiments failed, they simply took more. The outpost they destroyed. It wasn't just a weapons test. It was a harvesting operation." A distant explosion rocked the facility. Warning klaxons changed tone, and a computerized voice announced, "Warning, containment failure in sectors 7 through 13. Emergency purge protocols initiating in 10 minutes. What does that mean? Sarah asked, though she feared she already knew. The facility will sterilize itself, Karis confirmed, including all evidence of what was done here. We must reach the command center before that happens. They moved quickly but cautiously, Rex leading them through maintenance passages where possible. The labs they passed through told a story of systematic horror, endless rows of stasis tubes, medical equipment modified for torture, and observation rooms with one-way glass still showing recordings of failed experiments. Sarah had seen her share of atrocities during the war, but this was different. This wasn't the heat of battle or even calculated military strategy. This was cold, methodical evil masked as scientific progress. They'd reached a security station where several drone guards lay destroyed. Sarah salvaged a proper weapon, a Vorkai plasma rifle, from the wreckage. 5 minutes until purge, she noted, checking the station's displays. We need to move faster. Wait, Karis said, their attention caught by one of the security feeds. That chamber, it's still active. The screen showed a massive laboratory space filled with active stasis tubes. Unlike the twisted creatures they'd encountered, these subjects appeared to be in earlier stages of transformation. Some were still recognizably human or Vorkai. They're still alive, Sarah breathed. In stasis, but alive. Rex whined, his enhanced senses picking up something through the walls. The sound of fighting was getting closer. We can't help them, Karis said, though their voice was heavy with regret. Not without the command codes to safely end stasis. If we try, they'll die in agony. Then we come back for them, Sarah decided. After we get the evidence, after we stop the invasion, we come back with help, and we save everyone we can. A new sound cut through the chaos, the whirring of heavy machinery. Through the security feeds, they watched massive purge units deploying throughout the facility. The walls themselves were beginning to glow as sterilization protocols initiated. 2 minutes, Karis warned. The command center is through there. They pointed to a heavily reinforced door at the end of the corridor. But we'll need both my codes and a genetic keto. Sarah shot the door's control panel with her salvaged plasma rifle. The security system sparked and died, and Rex immediately wedged his cybernetically enhanced muscles into the gap, forcing the doors apart. Sometimes, Sarah said, helping Karis through the opening, the direct approach is best. The command center was a cathedral of technology, with holographic displays covering every wall. In the center, a quantum computer core pulsed with otherworldly light. Karis moved to the main console, their fingers flying over the controls. Downloading all research data, security footage, and communication logs, they reported. 30 seconds until purge. Sarah and Rex guarded the door as the sounds of fighting grew closer. Through the gap, she could see the walls beginning to glow white-hot as the sterilization process began. 15 seconds. Karis called. Almost there. A figure appeared in the doorway. Another hybrid, but this one seemed more in control of itself. It wore the tattered remains of what might have been a colonial military uniform, and its eyes held a spark of desperate intelligence. Please, it said in a voice that was both human and not. Help. Us. Rex moved forward, not attacking but not retreating. The hybrid reached out with a hand that was half covered in Vorkai scales. 10 seconds. Karis shouted. Sarah made a decision. Rex, guard. You. She pointed to the hybrid. Inside. Now. The hybrid squeezed through the gap just as the purge protocols reached their section. The doors began to glow, and the hybrid screamed, a sound of both pain and relief, as Sarah and Rex pulled it clear. Download complete, Karis announced. But we're trapped. The purge. There. Sarah spotted a maintenance hatch in the floor. Emergency cooling access. It has to be shielded. They pried open the hatch as the room began to heat up. Sarah helped the hybrid down first, then Rex. Karis transferred the data to a secure crystal and jumped down after them. Sarah was last, sealing the hatch just as the command center erupted in cleansing fire. They found themselves in a narrow maintenance tunnel filled with cooling pipes. The hybrid was curled in a corner, shaking, while Rex kept a watchful eye on it. Karis examined their data crystal with shaking hands. "We have it," they said in disbelief. "Everything. The weapons research, the experimentation logs, the invasion plans, enough to expose it all." Sarah looked at the hybrid, who was watching them with those unsettlingly aware eyes. "We have more than that," she said quietly. "We have a witness, someone who can testify to what was done here." The hybrid nodded slowly, struggling to form words with its modified vocal cords. "Others, like me, still alive, hidden in lower levels, need help. And they'll get it," Sarah promised, checking her borrowed plasma rifle. "But first, we need to get this evidence to Dawn Colony. We have less than 24 hours before the invasion fleet arrives. The surface access is half a kilometer that way." Karis pointed down the tunnel. "But by now, they'll know what we've stolen. Every drone soldier in the region will be hunting us." Rex's tail wagged once, their signal of commitment, of determination, of hope against impossible odds. Sarah found herself smiling despite everything they'd seen, everything they'd learned, everything they still had to do. "Well then," she said, "we better not keep them waiting." Sarah's borrowed plasma rifle hummed in the pre-dawn darkness as their small group emerged from the maintenance tunnels into Dawn's purple forests. The hybrid, who had managed to communicate that their name had once been Martinez, moved with increasing coordination as their modified body adjusted to freedom. Rex kept pace beside them, his cybernetic eye constantly scanning for pursuit. "The colony's main defense center is 30 kilometers south," Sarah said, checking her tactical display. "If we push hard, we can make it before the invasion fleet arrives." "We will not be alone," Karis warned, their amber eyes reflecting the growing light of Dawn's larger sun. "The warlord's forces are already mobilizing. I can hear their dropships." As if in confirmation, the distant roar of engines shattered the morning calm. Rex's ears pivoted toward the sound as his combat systems automatically calculated trajectories. "They're not just pursuing us," Sarah realized, watching multiple vapor trails streak across the sky. "They're launching the invasion early. The warlord knows we have proof of his crimes. He's forcing the timeline." Martinez made a harsh sound of distress, their modified vocal cords struggling with speech. "Others, still trapped. Cannot leave them." Sarah felt the weight of command settling onto her shoulders, a familiar burden she hadn't carried since Mars. They had the evidence to expose the warlord's atrocities and warn the colony, but there were still prisoners in the facility's lower levels. Every minute they delayed risked the lives of thousands in Dawn Colony, but every minute they didn't return to the facility condemned more victims to death or worse. Rex's tail wagged once, and she knew he'd already made his decision. "Karis," she said, "how well do you know the colonial defense protocols?" "Well enough. The 4th Battle Circle studied them extensively before." They stopped, mandibles clicking in sudden understanding. "You cannot be suggesting." "I am." Sarah pulled out her tactical tablet. "You and Martinez take the evidence to the colony. Rex and I will go back for the survivors. They will have reinforced the facility's defenses." Karis protested. "And the invasion force will be focused on the colony," Sarah finished, "which means the facility will be operating with minimal security. Perfect time for a rescue mission." She transferred command codes to Karis's data crystal. "These will get you past colonial security. Tell them everything. Show them the evidence. And most importantly," she met the Vorke's amber eyes, "show them there's still honor in your people." Karis stood straighter, their bearing shifting to something more formal. "It has been an honor to fight alongside you, Sarah Chen. You have taught me that true warriors exist in all species." They turned to Rex. "Guard your handler well, War Dog." Songs will be sung of your loyalty. Rex barked once, a sound of acknowledgement, of respect, of farewell. Martines moved to Sarah's side, their mismatched eyes fierce with determination. Going. With you, they declared. Know the way. Know the codes. Can. Help. Sarah nodded, understanding the need to save others from what they had endured. Karis, you have less than an hour to reach the colony. Make it count. As Karis disappeared into the forest, Sarah turned to her remaining companions. All right, we have about 50 former prisoners to rescue, a facility full of drone guards to deal with, and an invasion happening overhead. Should be fun. Rex's tail wagged once, and even Martinez managed something close to a smile with their hybrid features. Together, they began moving back toward the facility, using the chaos of the invasion as cover. The next hour was a blur of precision violence and desperate coordination. Martinez's codes got them into the lower levels, where they found the remaining prisoners in various stages of transformation. Some could walk, others had to be carried. Rex's enhanced strength proved invaluable as they moved survivors through maintenance tunnels and emergency routes. Above them, the sound of battle grew louder as Dawn Colony's defenses engaged the invasion force. Sarah's tactical display showed chaos in orbit, ships maneuvering, weapons firing, the fate of the colony hanging in the balance. They had just evacuated the last group of survivors when Sarah's comm unit crackled to life. Karis's voice came through, thick with emotion. Sarah Chen. It worked. The evidence, the testimony. Colonial Command has broadcast everything to all sectors. The other battle circles. They are standing down. Many are turning against the warlord. The invasion. A sound like Vorkai laughter. The invasion fleet is firing on itself. Sarah leaned against a wall, suddenly exhausted. Rex pressed against her leg as Martinez slumped nearby, surrounded by the people they had helped save. The warlord, she asked, dead by his own hand, rather than face the dishonor of his crimes being exposed. The fourth battle circle has assumed temporary command of our forces. We will make this right. Sarah Chen. For all species. Sarah looked at the survivors, humans and Vorkai alike, all victims of one leader's madness, all now free to reclaim their lives. It won't be easy, she said. There's a lot of healing needed on both sides. Yes, Karis agreed. But today proved that honor knows no species, that loyalty must be earned, not commanded, that sometimes the greatest warriors are those who choose mercy over vengeance. Rex barked in agreement, and Sarah smiled. Well, when you put it that way. She looked at Martinez and the other survivors. I think I know some people who might be able to help bridge that gap. The war that had defined Sarah's life ended not with a grand battle or a heroic sacrifice, but with a simple choice to trust an enemy and show compassion. As Dawn's twin suns rose fully into the sky, their light fell on a scene of former enemies helping each other toward medical ships, of humans and Vorkai working together to treat the wounded, of the first steps toward a peace built on understanding rather than fear. Rex sat beside her, his cybernetic eye dimmed to normal mode, his mission complete. Sarah scratched his ears, remembering how this had all started with his decision to trust a wounded Vorkai in a wheat field. Good boy, she whispered. The best boy. His tail wagged once, their signal of agreement, of completion, of hope for whatever came next. Above them, the sounds of battle faded into silence as a new day dawned on both their worlds.